Hi everybody, it's Brent with 360 Farms, and we wanted to start doing kind of a series of videos about growing elderberries. Now, I want to start out with a disclaimer. I want to talk about the way we have found the best way to do things. I don't want to refute anybody else's experience or prove anyone wrong. We started this exactly 10 years ago to this month. 2011. By 2012, we had 7,000 elderberry plants in the ground and ready to produce. So one of the things that we had to learn quickly about was pruning. Now, there was some really good field trial research done by a university that said pruning is almost a necessity for several reasons. In this area in front of one of our greenhouses, we keep 3 different specimen plants. In other words, 3 different varieties. And I do that to kind of let people easily see the difference in varieties, the difference in growth rate and leaf structure, flower characteristics, and even fruiting. And so our farm is situated in eastern Oklahoma. A few miles to the east is the Arkansas River Basin. We're on a high sandstone ridge just up off that river basin, and we're within actually sight to the west of us of an ancient forest structure called the cross timbers. Our soil is fairly sandy, but it's also extremely low pH. In a lot of areas, we're pushing about 5.2 pH. People who have done a little bit of study have heard of a variety called wildwood. We're within 10 miles of where the original wildwood variety was discovered. These plants that we have growing out here are all 3 Oklahoma natives. This one in particular is wildwood. The one in the center is a John variant that we've developed, and another one to the right of us. Now, there's a couple of things that I want you to notice about these plants. Everything, I mean literally everything about these plants above ground is 1 season's worth of growth. And I'm showing you that because a lot of people do not understand how quickly elderberries grow. The other thing is this. In this area, there's a pretty good stand of Bermuda grass. A lot of people worry about competition and things like that. This is 1 year's worth of growth, everything you see in Bermuda grass. These plants are native plants. They've learned to adapt to competition, and in a lot of cases, they actually perform better when that original native competition is in place. It's something called the mycorrhizal fungi network. If you have a lonely night, nothing to do, research that a little bit. It's pretty important. So what we want to talk about today is how to prune and why do we prune. And I'm going to take and remove a cane at this time and just kind of give you an idea. I tell people to prune to the ground. I get a lot of funny looks when I hear that or say that, but that's what we do, to the ground. I kind of want to show you what we've got here. All of these nodes coming up this cane were at one time leaves. And as the plant gets into the reproductive mode, it'll start dropping a lot of those leaves to put all that energy into fruiting. Now, when I tell people to prune to the ground here in eastern Oklahoma, this is why. If I had left some of these nodes high above the ground, we're in the middle of Tornado Alley here in eastern Oklahoma. It never fails. Sometime in April, maybe early May, we'll get a 70-mile-an-hour downburst wind. Now, if I had left those nodes above ground, when this plant starts growing rapidly in early spring, literally feet in a matter of weeks, you'll have a very, very tender shoot. That 70-mile-an-hour wind will snap that shoot off because that's a very, very fragile joint. That's why I tell people, let these things come up from the ground. I just want to kind of give you an idea about that. Now, why do we do this? Several years ago, I read about some research that was done that if you're going to be a commercial producer, you want to prune. By pruning, you'll actually increase your production by at least 50% per plant. I have found that to be true. Now, let me explain why that happens. If you have a new cane that comes up that season, that cane will produce an extremely large fruit head. Some varieties even larger than others. Depending on that variety, you might even have multiple flower heads. Now, I can tell you about this variety. Instead, in one season's worth of growth, this variety had at least 7 flower heads on it. And you can tell that by the branching that occurred this past growth season. So we want large flower heads. If I had left that cane, the next growth season, it would produce flower heads, but they'd be dramatically smaller. So you'll actually get less fruit production. Here's another reason you want to prune. If you leave this old hardwood growth, it becomes an overgrown, dense mess. Hard to harvest, everything about it. The other reason you want to do some pruning is bird depredation. I read an article many years ago about the USDA had found 68 different North American songbirds that will love to eat your elderberries. So we want to do pruning. Why? To remove the old hardwood growth. The old hardwood growth does nothing more than give a bird a perch, and that perch allows them to eat your elderberries. The way young elderberry shoots grow, rapid growth. And once that big terminal flower head gets in fruit, it starts drooping over. Very few birds can hover and eat at the same time. So we want that new growth every year instead of leaving the old hardwood growth that allows a bird a place to sit and eat your berries. We have 7,000 plants in production. That first year that I needed to prune, I was very anxious and nervous about it because we'd put a lot of time and effort into getting these plants growing. I was nervous about it. I thought I was fixing to kill 7,000 plants. So when they started growing the next season, I was amazed. It was the best thing I ever did. If you're going to plant good rooted elderberry nursery stock, you need to wait till at least the second winter before you do any pruning. That allows that dense root mat that an elderberry needs to survive. It allows it to get into place. That second winter, remove all those canes and then do it every winter after that. It's the best thing you can do for the overall health of the plant. It makes the plant much easier to harvest, and you have reduced natural depredation. Well, I had one more thing I want to tell you. So a lot of people say, well, how do you prune 7,000 plants? Surely you don't do it this way. No, I don't. I actually get to break out the big boy toys. This is a pretty good sized commercial weed eater that goes on with a harness, and it's nothing more than a specialized circular saw blade, and it cuts these elderberry canes like hot butter. And that's how we do it here. Again, I'm only telling you from our experience what has worked best for us. Good luck, and we'll have more videos in the future. Thank you.